The governing documents, I'd say, obligate us as shall. So that's the big thing we're going to take away on that. I'm sorry for my stuttering. I'm having a moment, so please bear with me. I'm supposed to be somewhere else tonight. Our duties and obligations are several-fold, okay? And as you can see up there, we're going to be going through these as we go. Fiduciary obligation. That's also going to be covered by Tim, our treasurer, as we go through our positions. But the biggest thing to take away is it's a duty for us to act in your benefit. We're supposed to take care of the interest of you as the association and as members of the community. Our due diligence, our care. We're supposed to take care of that to make sure nothing goes against your property and your interests as best as we can, okay? Our loyalty is to the community. It is not to everybody on the board. We're loyal to ourselves. You know, I'm loyal to Sandy, Sandy's loyal to me, but in all honesty, that's secondary. Our primary is loyalty to the community. Okay, we need to make sure we take care of everything and we do not put in things that are contrary to good faith and order for everybody working around. For example, I'm not going to say if my brother was down here working steel and we were going to put a building in. I'm not going to hire my brother. That's not showing good faith. That's not showing loyalty to this community. That's showing favoritism to my brother. Okay, if he puts in a bid, I recuse myself, I walk away, and the board takes care of it at that point. That's what we talk about when we talk about loyalty. We're not trying to feather our nest, we're trying to take care of everything for the community. Ordinary and reasonable care. Ordinary and reasonable care. Members must perform the duties in good faith in a manner that they reasonably believe to be in the best interest of the association, with such care that ordinary and prudent person in a similar situation would do. Having said that, if you've ever been on a board before, ain't gonna happen. I can take care of these two people right here, and the two people over there will say I didn't do it right. We have to find the best way between both to make sure everybody, through reasonable care of our properties, of our facilities, of our equipment, how we do things, how we manage our finances, how we manage our equipment and everything else, we have to do this in a reasonable manner. Okay? And with that, I'm going to let Miss Sandy take over because she's so good at this. I even have your papers up here for you, ma'am.
Board members have to act in good faith, and as long as they do, they're protected from liability by the business judgment rule. What it means is if there's a suit going on, if I were to become sued, or the board as a whole, or the association, a judge would ask, what would a prudent or responsible person do in a similar situation? The courts don't expect the board members to have all the answers and to have all the knowledge. So that's why associations hire professionals to advise us and handle the difficult situations that sometimes arise. Board members also have the duty of confidentiality. That means that decisions must remain confidential wherever appropriate. Like, for instance, executive sessions, that's all confidential information. An individual homeowner's financial information, like delinquencies or bankruptcies, problems that they're having financially, or a homeowner's violations, fines, or personal legal matters. They all must remain confidential, both during the board member's term and after their term has expired. So, Connie.
Are we already done?
I'm done.
Alrighty. Okay, so the powers of the board, the community association. So we are setting goals for the association, for the community, and standards and policies. We enforce governing documents with a lot of assistance from FSR, obviously. We make sure we have adequate insurance for the association to cover everything. We enter into contracts with suppliers that support the association, again, like FSR, Gothic. I'm sure there's Invictus, a laundry list. We are tasked with creating and supervising the committees within the association, like the design review, the landscape, the community task force. And we also conduct meetings, which quite a few meetings. So we have our HOA working sessions, we have open sessions, we have town halls, we have executive meetings, we have training classes,
Strategic Community Plan.
SCP, we got them all, yeah. So that is basically at a high level what the HOA board is tasked with doing. Okay, so let's see who's next. Bob. I think it's Bob for a while.
Probably. Five main areas for the community board. Protect the interests of the association, all our assets, and do our very best to include all home values. In other words, make sure they don't drop. We can't stop the economy from bottoming out like we had in 2008, but everything else, our goal is to ensure that we keep the property values at a minimum at where they currently are, and hopefully through everything we do, we keep them moving in an upward manner. Maintain all our common areas of interest, our parks, our pools, all the equipment we have, the facilities for buildings and material like that. Enhance, which means we promote and improve rather than diminish our common areas of interest. That includes getting our get-togethers, whether it's the dining out that they have at Indigo Pools right now, or they have, next month they have the Homeowners Appreciation Day. We're out there helping and encouraging things like that as well. And I'm missing something, I believe. Okay. I thought we were five, it was only three. Thank you. Now we're into the positions. We'll go into a couple of them. One person is not here tonight that is sitting as a board member that was elected into a position. Because of some family situation, she will not be here tonight. I will cover hers as well. The board president leads the board meetings. They oversee the handling of any procedural duties. They succeed in this role. To succeed in this role, the president has to know what the CC&Is are and has to be familiar with them. They serve as the authority on all association rules and the governing documents and appoints the committees if directed by bylaws. The president also leads community association meetings. Such responsibilities as calling the meetings to order, announcing the agenda, ensuring adherence, maintaining attendance, attendee order and decorum, proposing questions, calling for votes, announcing the results, and recognizes those from the floor to speak as well. The vice president. The vice president shares many of the duties as the president. Those duties will also include assuming a leadership role if the president is not available. The vice president's responsibilities include ensuring that the order is maintained. Sound familiar? Parliamentary procedures, ensuring a smooth flow of business, and serving as an informed source about association rules, bylaws, and governing documents. Those are your first two positions within the board. The next one coming up is treasurer, and I leave that to Mr. Tim.
Okay. Quite had it there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Treasurer's responsibility is really, if you look at the slide up here, you'll notice that we've contracted with First Service Residential to do our detailed accounting for Johnson Ranch. Therefore, the role of the treasurer is really an oversight role. In short, the treasurer's role is to trust and confirm the work that's done by FSR. So let me give you some examples of what that means. First, in budget development. Now, the budget's there in order that we meet our operating needs while being physically responsible, so we don't unnecessarily increase the dues to the community. In doing that, the treasurer provides guidance to First Service in terms of the accounts of certain accounts of interest before the budget's developed, such as what level of contingency do we want? Do we want to have capital improvement funds set aside for the coming year? FSR then goes ahead and does an initial draft of the budget based on history and based on the outlook for next year, what they think is going to happen. Then the treasurer comes back into the picture, reviews that budget in detail, and makes any changes that it feels are necessary in order to present it to the board and the community. And the final step in the budget development process is an actual detailed line-by-line review, or account-by-account review for those of you that have been at these meetings in the past, where we actually go through each individual account and discuss the reasons for the changes, either up or down for that particular account. And ultimately, the board makes a decision with the homeowner's input on what that budget will be for the next year. Another task, oversight task, is audit and taxes. And there we have a certified public accountant that we hire every year to review the Johnson Ranch finances. And again, the role of the treasurer there is to recommend an auditor to the board for approval, and then to review the audit findings from the auditor, as well as the tax forms before it's ultimately approved by the board of directors. The key here is that every year we do have a full audit. It's not like some associations that just do a compilation, they just look at what comes in. The auditor, again, if some of you have been at meetings in the past where we brought the auditor in, he actually goes through and checks bank accounts. He calls vendors to make sure they're getting paid. He checks invoices. He goes into First Service and actually goes through their control mechanism to make sure that there's appropriate financial control. So he does a very complete audit. Another area that the treasurer is involved in is investments. And there we're trying to get the best and safest return for the money that we've set aside for in both the operating account as it goes through the year, as well as our reserve account. Here, the treasurer recommends an investment policy. How do we want to invest? What things do we want to invest our money? Do we want to invest in Bitcoin, or do we want to invest in a safer thing? You know, Bitcoin's good. We like Bitcoin. So we make a recommendation on the policy. Again, FSR, because they have a financial services group, does a recommendation to the treasurer on what vehicles we should invest in, and the treasurer will modify those as appropriate, and then again, once again, present everything to the board and homeowners for their approval. Another area is reserve study. We just started that. We had a meeting this week. If should be up on YouTube, tomorrow or something. Sasha's going to put it up. I want a chance to see what the board is doing in terms of a new reserve study. It's a 30-year study that looks out on the major items that we will need to replace over the next 30 years and make sure that we have sufficient funds to meet those financial needs in the future. Again, the responsibility of the reservist is to, or the reserve treasurer is to recommend a reservist who's a professional, just like an auditor. They're professional people that are hired by us, then work with the reservist and with FSR to develop that study and ultimately present it to the board and homeowners for approval. And finally, as you know, every month we get a financial statement of revenue and expense for the community. And again, the responsibility of the treasurer is to review that in detail, look at it on an account-by-account basis, and question if there's any questions relative to understanding what that expense or that revenue line is for. Do a sample check of invoices. Actually, you can go in and look at the individual invoices to see who they're paid to, and does it make sense that the payment was made. The financial statements also include bank accounts, so look at the bank account statements and say, does that make sense? Does it look like the money adds up to what we expect to have? And again, ultimately, every month to present to the board and the community their information for approval. So that's what the oversight responsibilities of a treasurer is. Sandy? Or not Sandy. Next.
I was going to say, I think it's mine.
Yeah, it's your turn. Yeah, you're up. There you go.
Okay, so the role of the secretary is obviously during normal HOA meetings, I take all the meeting minutes. I then review them and they are sent out by FSR. I update any documents as required that pertain to the association. I provide notice of meetings, which generally you'll see a blast come out on FSR Connect or Johnson Ranch Facebook page. I think they're posted also. Distributing documents, making sure again that meeting minutes are done in a timely fashion, and making sure the Johnson Ranch Association meets all the legal documentation requirements, such as filing documents before deadlines. So pretty cut and dry. And let's see who's next. Oh, you guys are up. Thanks.
Hi everybody. Are you still with us?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. We're going to go into a lot more detail. As a matter of fact, when we were putting this together, we're like, how do we sum up what management does? So some of it will be piggybacking off what the board has already shared. So let's just dig in and get started. And I want to thank Kurt Kowieski for being here tonight with First Service Residential. He's my vice president. So Kirk, if you're burning to say something during this, please feel free. And I offer that to you too, Jen, because we put this together and it's a lot of information. And even if the board wants to fill in, just make it relaxed if they have anything that they would like to add. So, role of the management company, responsible for day-to-day operations of the community. So we're going to just go into that now and give you quite a few examples of what that means. So we fulfill the terms of the management agreement. And so it's really good, sometimes we sit with the board and even my vice president as well to look over everything and make sure that we're not missing a line or two in there, that we are fulfilling everything that our contract expects of us. An effective communication, go to I think we have some subs on that. So it's really important in communication that first we're keeping the board informed. We never want them surprised of something that's going on in the community, so we'll usually share something really important. Of course, that's the key word, or I should say two keywords, very important, because we don't go and run to them with the daily operations, but we want to make sure that they're informed of anything outside of the norm. Community as well, we have e-blasts, and some of that's been mentioned. We have quarterly newsletters, and we do our best to get signs out in the community as well. But we'd like to make sure that the e-blasts have information for every upcoming meeting and event, and it is required by state statute that we notify the community of meetings that are taking place 48 hours prior to an open board meeting and even an executive meeting as well. Your minutes and other association documents on the community website, that's another way to keep informed. We're also working on adding all of the minutes like from your strategic community plan task force meetings as well. So resident customer service and support, go ahead Jen. Of course the on-site staff is there. You can walk in and visit, you can email or call, also snail mail if you prefer. Homeowner site visits. Now, what we mean by this, and these happen often, so when Jen and I talk about the things that pull us away from our list, it's impossible. It's good to make a list, but we get pulled away from it a lot. It's impossible to get everything done on a list. As a matter of fact, we tell each other in community management, don't make a list and think you're going to get through it because you pulled in every direction. One is for homeowner site visits, we will often get our eyes on something. A homeowner will call something going on, and if we can't visualize it, we really don't know how to help. Most of the time we can. If it's a maintenance issue, of course, in the common areas, that's one thing. But when a homeowner has a specific thing, let's use an example of maybe a tree that is encroaching their property. And although we've had our trees trimmed recently, that's something that Jen literally will get in her car and drive and meet a homeowner. So that takes up a lot of her time too, and we appreciate that. 24/7 Customer Care Center. This is awesome. In our meetings, I share with you how many calls our First Service Residential Customer Care Center takes. And that lightens our load more than I can even tell you, because it's a simple call sometimes for their account balance or even to place a work order. And if you didn't know that, you can do that through the customer care, especially after hours. So really helps us, but also benefits you as homeowners and residents. So enforcing association governing documents. Aren't you supposed to be going through these? That's your orange. She's just gonna let me. So I'm actually going to bring Jennifer up here and let her talk about enforcing the governing documents because she oversees the compliance team.
So we have an amazing compliance team out there. They are out there every day. They have been in a little bit more helping out with their design review committee, but as of Monday morning, they are going to be back out there full time, at least 7 hours a day, 6 to 7 hours a day. So they're up to speed for that. Let me see if we got another one there. Yep. So our design review guidelines, we'll kind of touch this a little bit later too, but I know you all have heard the numbers that have been coming in. Bob, are we at 6 something?
As of the last meeting, from January to that last meeting, we've done 535
Yeah.
first time requests.
First time.
First time.
Yes. So
Not
that,
appeals,
yeah.
anything else, just first time requests for design review.
And that are the ones that go to the design review committee. So there's the other piece of it that are the auto submit or auto approvals in the office. We haven't even had time to count those up. We're probably at 600 on those too. So it's been keeping us busy, but it's working. We're getting that baseline out there. People are submitting their applications, and now the community knows that, oh, I do have to submit when I want to put a 15-foot pergola in my backyard that takes up the whole backyard. So they do. Most people know that now. Meeting preparation assistance and guidance. We take care of all the meeting packet preparation for the board of directors, getting information collected, putting their packets together, making sure that they have all their answers or questions answered before they get into the meeting. That way, when they're here in front of you guys, they're informed and can make decisions. Implement the decisions of the board of directors. So when the meeting's over and we review the task for management, that's what we go back with and we start working on the next day, the tasks that are given to us. Financial management and budgeting, prepare and send quarterly billing statements. That one's self-explanatory. Work with the treasurer to prepare the annual budget for board review and approval. receive assessment payments and apply those accordingly. And there's many ways that that can be done. And we're trying to educate our homeowners as they do come in monthly with their payments that they can set up with their bank. Auto pay, they can do the click pay that we have. They can do bill pay. I know people are, what's the difference between auto pay and bill pay? Bill pay is a service you get through your bank, and sometimes some banks charge a fee to do that. Auto pay is you just call the company and say, hey, I'd like to have it auto pay out of my account with a routing number. Mail,
In the office.
they can set it up in there.
So just real quick, I just wanted to share with you too something brand new that we've brought to the table for homeowners. They are able to actually make a click pay payment at the office. I was talking with Sarah Holcomb about this, and she was explaining a little bit because I wasn't in on this training process. So what was happening is homeowners would come in and they would use a check. They would make a payment. And it was taking at least 10 days, and so if they were coming right up to the mark, we found it was taking too long, so we wanted to implement something that would help homeowners. And so now they can literally make their payment at the office, and I believe if it's through a checking account, there is no charge. If it's used credit card, there is a fee for that. But just so you know, that added benefit as well was added recently. So we monitor delinquent accounts, before they're sent to attorney, and after attorney, that's a little bit different. Our pre-legal department with First Service Residential takes over from there. We get a lot of calls that people are frustrated at how quickly they receive a notice. And, maybe the term aggressive collections could be used, but it's so important, especially in a community this size and the common areas that need to be kept up, that we're asking, our neighbors to pay. And what I mean by that is this collection process is put in place. That's exactly what that does. It keeps and holds everybody accountable for paying on time. And Tim, do you want to just touch a little bit on the pre-legal portion and what you feel that does for the board?
Yeah, basically what it's a no-cost process by which First Service sends out collection letters to homeowners to attempt to get them to pay for the dues that they owe. And ultimately, if they're unable to achieve payment after three requests, then it will be turned over to an attorney for collection. And with our attorneys, we also have a no-cost collection process where they will attempt to escalate the collection process with the individual, and ultimately we may have to go to an actual fee pay with the attorney if it's impossible to get them to pay.
Kirk might be able to give us a status on this, but with pre-legal, the wonderful thing about that, and it's done through our corporate office, is we usually, what's the percentage on that, Kirk? Do you know what the people will usually pay with that first initial letter? It's high, it's like 80-something%.
Yeah, it's around 86%.
Around 86%. So that's a great benefit to the community that First Service has and does on site there. But then after that, it does go to attorneys, and that's when we're out. As a matter of fact, if an account is at attorney, I know it's so frustrating for homeowners, but at that mark, we're not communicating with homeowners. Yes, Kirk?
And just to clarify, that entire process that's a board set policy of the timing of all that. So
yes.
When we took over management, we simply inherited and implemented the already pre-existing policy that the board says, and actually set by your 16Rs that says, this is the late date, this is the amount that's due based on the late date, et cetera, et cetera. So that's nothing that we dictate. We simply follow the policy of the association in collecting those funds.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we also receive and review vendor invoices for processing and payment, and there's a lot of them. So every service that is performed within your community, an invoice comes to me, and I code it according to the budget general ledger line that it goes to, and get those paid. And of course, that needs to be done in a timely manner. The board has the treasurer, especially. I know Tim goes in and he looks at these invoices, so he keeps a pulse on that as well. Go ahead. What was that last one? That's okay. Oh, okay. Well, and this, of course, Tim touched on this, but reconciling the monthly bank accounts and prepare the financials. Of course, our First Service Accounting does that. So Tim and I meet, and we go over the financials, sometimes line by line on certain reports, so that we're able to then ask the accountant any questions we may have, because we don't just take them at face value. We truly look through them. If there's something that we're unsure of, we sit together and we'll call the accountant and we'll go over those numbers. Okay. So records management. Jen, you want to come chat on this a little bit? I think we had you.
Okay, so records management, there is a retention policy that has been set forth by the board, and we follow.
Some of it's state statute too.
Yeah, some state statute. We do keep track of, there's certain things that are a year retention policy, there's some that are 7 years, there's some that are 3 years, 4 years. So all the different documents have a different retention period on that. So that we are tasked with making sure those are kept timely. Okay. Management weekly community tours. So Robin and myself go out weekly with some of our vendors. Gothic is the big one that we go out with weekly. It's mostly on Fridays or Mondays. And then sometimes I'm meeting Chad out on the property, daily, every other day, a few times a day. It just depends on if we've got a tree down, if we've got a tree we need to look at to see if we need to trim it. So we are out there weekly, more than weekly, out in the community. We do, on that community tour, we do not just go, we don't just go see one issue that might be there that we need to look at. We actually drive the whole community. We go through and we take, we go into Solera, the few parts that we do take care of also there and take a look. Common area maintenance. We are tasked with making sure those common areas are, up to standards, and we do task our maintenance crew also with this, and our compliance team. We do ask that when they're out in the community, that they have their eyes on everything. If they're driving by a park and they see a sidewalk that's more than a 1/4 inch, that they're alerting our maintenance crew and getting them out the right away, or we call Pinal County if it's the Pinal County sidewalk, if they see weeds in an area when they're driving around. So we've tasked our whole team to have eyes on the community. Okay, our 2.5 maintenance personnel. What 2.5 is we have Mark, the wonderful Mark that we all know, and we have hired Sergio. I don't know if everybody's been able to meet Sergio. He's a great guy. He actually took Mal's position. So we've kind of reinvented that position a little bit and turned it into where he is, I don't want to put an exact half on it, but he does maintenance and he's in charge of the pools and the pool staff, the pool attendants. So and then Mark Rainboth, he's a full-time maintenance under Mark. So it's been nice how we've been able to work that position of Mal's to be able to do maintenance and help both the Marks out and still manage the pools and pool attendants. So preventative maintenance to prolong life of the assets in the community. So we're talking about park equipments, pools, decks, tennis courts, you name it. Got a lot of that out there. So serve as liaison and oversight of all the vendors. So I know, I think it was Connie, we were trying to guess how many vendors out there today when we were writing, we were counting on our fingers, who are we missing? We're probably not counting them all, but we got 15 written down that we could think of plus. So there are a lot of vendors that we have in the community. RFP management, site visits for projects. So, request for proposal. We probably could have spelled that out for you, sorry. So when we go out for bids, like for the granite, for the poly line conversion, the trees, we create those RFPs in a program that we call Synleo, which creates an amazing matrix for our board, so it compares everybody side by side. So once they vote on who they decide they want to move forward with, we're tasked with, getting the contract up and going with them, and then checking in on them periodically, weekly with them on where they're at on each of those projects that are out there. Project management kind of falls in the same line as that. Yes. So we're going from start to finish on that. So we make sure, and like our trees, we went out and we drove with Gothic and made sure that, all the trees that were on there, they've taken care of, stump ground, and that is completed to its fullest.
One thing I mentioned too, I might mention, when we talk about the weekly tours and having the entire team help, we've also created a weekly common area and facilities report that we send to the board on a weekly basis. That is also along with my weekly report that goes to the board. But we started asking compliance, you're out there, your eyes are out there, and they were doing a pretty good job, but we wanted them to sharpen it up a little bit and help with the common areas if there was something that they saw, and they do. They come in and they report to Sarah Moronis, and we create this weekly common area and facilities report so that the board is aware of things out there too. And kind of the idea of that is that hopefully we get our eyes on it before homeowners and the board do. That's important to us. We want to make sure that you're not having to come to us and tell us. But I can tell you, it's a really big community, and there are times when little areas, maybe for weeds or something, get missed, and we do get calls on that. But we also react to those, and we get work orders in, and with Jen's help, she helps monitor that with the landscape company. It's a great process. It's working awesome. So staff management. So of course, we for First Service Residential, we recruit, we hire, and we train our staff, and some of that training is also done at corporate. But I'll tell you, we really take our time and put thought into the right people for your community. And then of course, our Human Resources Department at corporate, they do a background check and everything for us to further affirm what we believe with our candidates, that they are good to go and that they're a quality, would be a quality member for Johnson Ranch, but also our team. So for those of you that don't know, we have a 20-member staff. There are 10, which I would consider of the on-site. They're at the office. There's the 7 of us in the office, but we count maintenance into that, the 3 of them. And then the pool staff has 10. What was I had a thought on that. Nope, go on. Might come back. So I wanted to put this in here for continuing education opportunities for the team. I just feel that that's so important so that we're not remaining complacent. We're working on keeping current. I myself go to classes that are taught by attorneys so that I can keep up on Arizona state law as well. It's just hugely important because you've got your CC&Rs and your other governing documents that we follow, but your Arizona state statute, the statutes change all the time. And so it's really important that as managers, we keep up on that, but we also make sure that our board is given a book as well so that they are aware of state statute. We refer to that book a lot. And then it's also important to create events to build community relationships. So that has been really important to us because we felt the want and need from the board as well, that we have activities that will help build community and relationships. How many of you have attended some of those, or at least one of the activities? Okay, there's plenty of them, so you can't not say that there's not. Corey, I believe, has increased activities by 200 and some %, but what she does, I think, is so amazing is we pair with Florence Unified School District as well, so that these events are a shared expense, but also homeowners. And we found out that a lot of our homeowners go to these the school activities that are, I should say, paired with the school activities, sometimes more than they do just the normal ones we have in the community, because there's some interest there too for their kids. Go ahead. This to me is probably the most important thing I can share with you tonight. Management works at the direction of the board, and it is our responsibility that we implement what they ask us to. And that's why I like to keep that weekly report for them, because they can let me know, hey, you're not moving quick enough on this. And there's usually somewhere around 30 items on there that we keep track of and we keep our eye on. Of course, that's not nearly everything that we do, but those are like I would call top shelf things that the board would have us watching and things that we've been tasked with. And so that was one thing I know that the board really wanted to come out of this meeting tonight, is that it's understood that we take direction from them. So sometimes when there's a decision that homeowners will come to us and say, well, why did you do that? We have to share that it was a board decision. And if they don't like it, we then tell them that the meetings are held and there's an open forum in which they can share their opinion on that. We serve as a liaison to the board of directors. I think this is important to understand too, because often we'll have homeowners ask, well, why can't we have their email addresses? So what I try to do is maybe a few numbers. There's 6,071 homes. There's over 20,000 people that live in the community. And so if we were to hand out that personal information, their emails would be inundated. And that's really not their capacity. Their capacity is what you see if you come to these meetings. Of course, that would be where I come in. If you want to communicate with the board outside of an open forum, at any time you can email me and ask me to forward an email, and I will do that. Of course, it needs to be HOA related, but we serve as that purpose as well. Provide information, training, and be a resource to the board as it sets policies. So, they have a great responsibility too in keeping up with things. Sometimes if state statute changes, maybe we have to look at a policy that we have. So change is ongoing, we all know that. So as new policies and things need to be put in place, I'm usually tasked with helping create the verbiage for that. Sometimes we might bring an attorney in, and give us his opinion on what we've said. But ultimately, it needs to work for your board of directors. It needs to feel like it's a one voice and it's stating exactly what needs to be said. So that's where I kind of come in and helping maybe with some legal aspects. Strategic community plan, we meet monthly, and I do oversee that as well. So we're working, if you haven't been to one of those meetings, I know Bill, you made one. It's kind of an interesting process, and right now, we just finished the goals for that strategic community plan, and I believe we have a July target date for having that completed. It's been really fun working with the task force and kind of watching them work together in creating this plan. Now we're really going to get into the guts of it, and from the goals, we're just going to create subcategories, and that will build your community plan. Was this you? I can't tell.
That's all my eyes are. Okay, so we oversee the association committee monthly meetings. Besides just the strategic community planning, the design review committee, we did talk about that a little earlier, kind of a little bit of a repeat, but we do meet monthly. It's always the first Wednesday of the month. The last 3 months, we have had to add in an extra meeting in the middle of the month just to get through. So those were the months where we're hitting about 250 during the month that we had to call a couple meetings. I think we're okay. Knock on wood. we haven't called a second one for the month, so.
As of this morning when I stopped in and talked to the young lady that's running that for us, there's only like
About 80.
50 some odd as of right now. That will put us over 600
Yeah.
since January 8th.
Yep. Landscape committee. So Robin works with the landscape committee, and you guys meet
The second now, Tim, second Wednesday?
Second Wednesday.
Yeah.
second Wednesday of the month. So you all are invited to come sit in that. It's typically over at the HOA office.
Tim, do you want to expound on that since you chair that?
Yeah, well,
Or I should say you oversee
I'm
it?
the liaison, yeah, the
Yes.
chair is
Greg
Greg
Booth.
Booth, yeah. Yeah, basically the landscape committee had got a new assignment or new charter from the board. And the objective now of the landscape committee is to really be a set of eyes on what's actually going on with the landscaping. So the committee is 5 people. They've divided up the total community into 5 areas, which match pretty much what Gothic has got in terms of the areas that they look at. And at least once a month, an individual will go out and check that area and make sure it's up to stuff as far as they're expecting. And any issues they send over to Greg, who compiles them, gets them to Robin, and then we discuss those topics as we get together on a monthly basis, make sure everything is going according to plan. Gothic is there, and they'll bring us up to speed on any particular landscape activities that are going on.
So with that, we wanted to open it up, see if there's any questions, because it's just kind of an overview of what we do. I think both groups here, board and management, would tell you that it would probably be impossible to really list every single thing that we do. But from that, did you have any questions maybe? Some